When the Super Nintendo came onto the scene, everyone was looking forward to seeing what the more powerful machine could do for their favorite long-running franchises. Fans of Super Mario Bros. 3 couldn't wait to see what Super Mario World was going to look like. Final Fantasy players patiently waited for a payoff of the next iteration of the RPG. And of course, the same could be said for another long-running series of games, as we take a look at Mega Man 7 for the Super Nintendo. But before we get into that, here's a shout out for the sponsor of this video, Techries. They're your one-stop place for all things tech and gaming news. Plus, they host live shows every Sunday on YouTube and Twitch. Follow the link on screen or in the description to check out their page, and be sure to drop a follow so you don't miss out. Mega Man 7 was released worldwide in 1995, first in Japan on March 24th, followed by North America on September 1st, and then Europe on November 20th. A big reason for the delay between the Japan and North American releases was that even though an English version was ready, Capcom mistakenly thought that there wasn't an appetite for more classic Mega Man outside of Japan, what with Mega Man X2 on the horizon. So, they announced that they would not be releasing the translated version. Oh, how wrong they were, because as soon as it became public knowledge, there was a massive backlash so big that Capcom had to relent, and thus the North American and European releases made it to their regions. So, was the outcry worth it to see the original Blue Bomber's first foray into the 16-bit era? The game opens up with some backstory for this game in particular. After the events of Mega Man 6, Dr. Wily was not only defeated again, but actually captured this time. However, the mad genius always has a contingency plan, and after 6 months of inactivity, 4 new robot masters were awakened, having not heard from their creator for such a long time. They waste no time in setting out to break Dr. Wily out of prison while laying waste to the big city as revenge. It's once again up to Mega Man to take down these new threats and get Wily back into his cell. Once you hit the title screen, you can start a new game or enter a password to return to your prior progress. Yes, even with the Super Nintendo cartridge's saving capabilities, the classic password system still persisted in the Mega Man games, even the X series. Starting a new game throws you into the intro stage where some cutscenes play out and you get an introduction to the gameplay. Using B to jump and Y to shoot, you can also hold down the Y button to charge Mega Man's shots. Pressing start will not only pause the game, but will take you to a menu where you can get some stats, but mainly where you can select your array of collected Robot Master and Rush abilities. Anyone who played the prior entries will feel right at home in this setup, but something new was the ability to use the L and R shoulder buttons to quickly swap Robot Master powers on the fly outside of the menu. Pretty huge to keep the flow of the game going. It's also at the end of the first stage that you encounter a new character who attacks Mega Man on sight. After a brief skirmish, the assailant reveals his intent to hunt down Dr. Wily and capture him before Mega Man does. Joined by his canine companion, he reveals their names to be Bass and Treble before they teleport away. Some serious and suspicious lone wolf energy there. After all that exposition, you'll be taken to the stage select screen. It's here that you can press select to hit up Otto's shop to spend screws you find throughout the game. You can get things like health canisters, extra lives, and a few bonus items as well. Many things to try and make your life easier. In classic Mega Man form, you have to select a Robot Master's stage, beat them, and absorb their powers to hopefully aid you in your next endeavor. At the beginning, you can select from the 4 Robot Masters that broke Wily out of jail. There's Freeze Man, Junk Man, Burst Man, and Cloud Man. Once you finish all 4 of them off, you get some cutscene action, and then you have to take on 4 more new Robot Masters, who are Spring Man, Slash Man, Shade Man, and Turbo Man. And after all that, you can assault Wily's new castle with a gauntlet of its own challenges. It felt like the 7th entry into the franchise played exactly like its predecessors did, which included a whole lot of pixel-perfect platforming and challenging boss fights. Now, I know fans of the franchise like all that, but while I was playing, it all amounted to just utter frustration. Those Mega Man-style gaps were heart attack-inducing, and sometimes the gameplay got stupidly clunky at the worst possible times. The Robot Masters move around in such an agile way, while poor Mega Man is relegated to a slow run, low jump, and short slide to maneuver around. All the levels were a mix of standard platforming and some interesting use of stage elements to get around or present a challenge. A lot of other things, though, just felt like the devs were trolling you. Impossible jumps, insane enemy placements, and encounters that took way too long to overcome. And adding to that frustration were all the cutscenes in this game. They would just drag on and on. Even mashing the button to speed it along, it still forced a pause before the text would move on to the next paragraph. I get that many people love this franchise for its difficulty, but I'm not convinced it's fair difficulty. And honestly, this one feels more like an exercise in memorizing patterns than it is a proper reactionary platformer. Great for the fans, but it ain't for me. The gameplay of Mega Man 7 gets a 6 out of 10. With the move to the more powerful Super Nintendo, Mega Man 7 wasted no time in showing off the visual upgrades for the game, opening with some nicely rendered images and animations to portray the game's exposition. Now when you look at the title screen, the uninitiated would point out just how simple and underwhelming it is. Just a black background with the game logo on top and the Capcom name at the bottom. However, what this is really an homage to the first Mega Man game's title screen on the NES. With Mega Man X existing at the same time, Capcom wanted to make sure this game leaned heavy into the nostalgia. The game environments are quite a treat to behold. They reach a nice balance of cartoony, but full of so much detail that adds to the world's environment. They're all very nicely rendered and appealing, but especially backgrounds like the ruined city in the intro stage, Slash Man's stage, and Shade Man's stage all add character to the game that couldn't really be pulled off in the previous generation. And of course, we have the character models. This was the first time fans got to see much more detailed renderings of their favorite characters. Sure, we see Mega Man himself for the bulk of the game with smooth animations and uses the same poses as prior entries. But we also got to see many other favorites like Proto Man, Rush, Dr. Light, and Dr. Wily, just to name a few. And taking a look at the new character, Bass, he's got a sleek design that probably helped usher in the edgelord craze of video games that came after. Looking at you, Sega! Let's also bring attention to the Robot Masters. They generally took up more screen space than Mega Man, so there was more room to play with animations. And how they moved about the combat room was very unique per character, unlike the constraints of the prior games. And here's an interesting little tidbit that I only just found out. Apparently, ever since Mega Man 2, Capcom has actually held contests for fans to design Robot Masters that they would end up using in the games, this one included. So to give love to some fan creations like this is a pretty neat thing to hear. Worth mentioning too is despite all this new graphical attention to the main characters, the minor enemies themselves were not left in the dust. In fact, some of them have possibly the best animations in the game, likely due to the fact that they all move in predetermined and simplistic ways, but man are they smooth. The graphics of Mega Man 7 get a 9 out of 10. Okay, so first of all, in a Capcom game, we're missing the iconic jingle of the 90s. And when we take a listen to the title track of this Mega Man, there's something lacking compared to the past entries. Kind of felt bland and short. The stage select tune just worked, and that was about it. But my god, the tune for Otto's shop, while initially catchy and full of character, is kind of ear-piercing and repetitive, especially when you're trying to peruse a shopping catalog. The stage music had a mixture of very appropriately matching the environment, while others felt tacked on and average at best. Two tunes that stuck with me back in the day were the boss fight music and the intro stage tune, but hearing them again today, I think my memory of them was better than the actual tracks themselves. Basically did not age well. Listening to the sound effects now was pretty nice. Lots of appealing sounds in the game, especially anything related to metal. It just sounded so appropriate and crisp. However, as iconic as it is to hear Mega Man have a cybernetic little bop sound play every time he lands, it was really starting to get on my nerves, especially when trying to figure out some platforming puzzles, mocking me for my ineptitude. The music and sound of Mega Man 7 gets a 7 out of 10. So, as you can probably tell, I was not into the franchise back in the day. I would occasionally play a friend's Mega Man 2 cartridge on the Game Boy, and as for this game, it was also a borrow situation from a school bus friend. And I was such a scrub at the games that I think I was only ever able to beat Cloudman, and maybe ever make it to the other bosses, but failing miserably. As I mentioned earlier, 2 tunes stuck in my head from this game though, that being the first level and the boss fight music, so it did have a smidge of lasting impression on me. The nostalgia hit of Mega Man 7 gets a 3 out of 10. In my own review of this game, it's unfortunately suffering from the fact that I'm just not into the difficulty of this game, despite enjoying its core mechanics on paper. However, there's something else that plagued Mega Man 7, even among the fans of the franchise. Since Mega Man X was so popular, it was all hands on deck to create the sequel, Mega Man X2. But because of this focus on X2, Mega Man 7 was left with a smaller development window for their targeted release date, only 3 months in fact. With such a crunched schedule, it's no wonder a lot of elements of this game were only up to standard at best. In fact, it's impressive they even got to that level. Reviewers at the time gave it only slightly above average scores, citing that the gameplay and levels didn't add anything new to the franchise, and very often it was unfairly compared to Mega Man X. Reviewers did, however, enjoy the fact that we got classic Mega Man into the 16-bit era. So, my feelings about Mega Man gameplay aside, it was unfortunate that this game got the short end of the stick with its crunched development time and unfair comparisons to the fresher, shinier X series, resulting in basically average gameplay and audio, but at least able to lean on its visual presentation and nostalgia of the prior generation. It seems that despite getting updated to the 16-bit era, Mega Man was still left with its best games in the prior generation.